Welcome to Manna from Heaven with your girl Sharon Gaines Lee. I am so happy you are here today as I continue this series with Karla Cruel. It is such an interesting discussion on Blacks working together with each other in the community and the stereotypes that need to be dismissed and admonished. I said in my opening broadcast that this interview is geared towards Black people, but honestly, it's meant for all people. So join in with me today and eat the manna. Chew on the manna, chew on the word, glean from it. Learn how we can all work together, grow together, and make our relationships with our community and our world a better place. So come on and eat. Come on and eat and join in with me. Come on, you can glean. There's a lot to glean here. Come on, come on. I was in Philadelphia when I was living in Philadelphia. We used to hold these connect groups from the church. We went to Freedom Church, and it was downtown
Mhm.
Philadelphia. So you had a whole group of a plethora of different races and
Right,
different.
right, right.
And so we would hold those groups in our house, and it was a whole bunch of different, and they were all women. It was a whole bunch of different races. I'm looking at this, a whole bunch of different races in our connect group. And so I can remember one class, Carla. I sat back in the chair and I said, I am so glad that I am Black. I said, not just that I'm Black, but I'm dark Black skin. And I opened
Yeah.
my eyes, and it was like everybody was almost plastered up against the chair or the wall, wherever they were. And I said that for a reason. I said, I mean what I said exactly. I said, I enjoy being the shade that I am, and I enjoy being Black. I said, if you sat back in your chair and you just said, and this was a whole different array of different nationalities. I said, if you said exactly what I said and I got offended, I said, that's my problem. I said, because
Mhm.
God specifically made you the way you are for a reason. I said, and
Yeah.
we're all collectively in this room for a reason. We have something that we can glean from one another. We can learn from one another that I can't learn from my Black sister that I love. I can't learn about the Asian community from my Black sister.
And just like I
White
just
people
went
can't
through,
learn. White people can't learn about us from another white person. You can.
you can't. That's exactly
Right.
right. And listen, there are, I just bought some fruit.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was talking about how, growing up in Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
I know watermelon, I know, strawberries, apples, honeydew,
Right.
the ones that you see in the supermarket, and that's normal, right?
Right.
So I was frustrated because when, moving to Hawaii, I went to the supermarket. I was like, why? They had sort of boring fruits, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe, and sometimes a pineapple, right?
Right.
But they had apples and bananas, and I'm like, I'm on an island,
Right. You
right?
said sometimes a
Right. Where are these? And then I started going to the farmers markets, and
pineapple.
I was introduced to fruits that I had never seen in my entire life. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've heard of a lychee drink, but I had
Mm-hmm.
never seen lychee the
Yeah.
fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I just bought some lilikoi, which
Mm-hmm.
grows here. It's
Yeah.
not going to grow in Philadelphia on the East Coast. And the point to me was when I was talking to my nephew, I said, it's funny. The beauty of traveling is that you get exposed to things that you could have never even experienced just
Yes.
because of the
Yes.
location,
Yes.
right? And so people's cultures, a lot of them are developed because of their location and the things that they do there, but it adds something, right? It adds something to other people's experiences. Me
Mhm,
living when I lived in Japan,
mhm,
before moving to Japan, I talked too much, right?
mhm,
My voice was often loud, right?
mhm.
We in
Yeah,
Philly are loud.
yeah,
I
yeah.
never realized how loud
Mhm,
we are, but we're quite loud,
mhm,
right?
yeah.
And I learned to appreciate silence
Mhm,
because it's a very quiet culture, right?
mhm.
You have quiet train cars, and it was strange to me that it would be in the middle of rush hour, early in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. You're on the train and no one's talking, right? And you walk down the street, and I learned to appreciate silence. And then I started thinking it's interesting to me that Buddhism, which talks a lot about silent meditation,
Yeah.
quietness, is China, Japan, Korea, in these
Mhm,
Mongolia. So you're in these cultures, and all of those cultures are quieter cultures,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
But Black folk, right? We in the
Yeah.
United States of America, somebody praying, yeah, yes, yes, yeah. It's rarely quiet
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
Black church,
Right, right,
right?
right.
we don't do silence so well, right? But I've learned the beauty of both. I didn't experience silence until I went and I was deeply immersed into another culture. I didn't learn how to truly experience it. And it's funny because I watched different people worship. Growing up in church, especially when I was in college, I tried to do a racial reconciliation worship. So you know, college campuses, they have all of those Christian groups, right? And I noticed that you could call it different Christian groups, but I said that's the white one, that's the black one, that's the Asian one. Campus Crusade for Christ, Disciples Indeed, and InterVarsity, right? And so I went to all the leaders of the group and I said, why don't we do a worship service together? We may have cultural differences, but if we all serve the same Lord, why can't we come together and worship together? And I couldn't pull it off. I got such pushback. People don't like that type of worship. Like some people want to be quiet, you know. Oh, we come to you, Heavenly Father. And then, right. So that's one culture. And then you have the other one is like, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, Jesus. And they're like, and other people are like, oh, I'm so offended by that. But why can't we look for what we can learn about God from the diversity? What is he telling us about his person that he created? You say that, how can you be a Christian and say that you believe that God is the creator of all things, right? Everything originated from him. If everything originated from him, and I understand you're like, oh, but sin came in and blah, 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 blah. But you're telling me that all of these diversity of culture, all this diversity of color, God doesn't have a piece of himself in all of that? And by you deciding not to connect, maybe you're missing out on a part of God's personality that you can't touch until you touch that other culture.
That's right. We covered a lot in our conversation, but here's this question I want to ask Karla. What are some practical solutions to help the advancement of Black people? What are some solutions? Some practical solutions?
I think simple, like, so let's say we just started small.
Okay.
Did you ever see the movie Pay It Forward?
Yeah.
Okay. And you remember the concept of pay it forward?
Yes.
I think we need to heal as a people. We've been taught, we've been culturalized, taught, indoctrinated with this idea to fear one another, to distrust one another, and that good cannot come out of the Blackness, right? Right. And some people try to overdo it on the other side, but I think it's flip sides of the same coin. I believe that one of the simple solutions is that we should start to look for opportunities to support other Black people and not just buy Black. I don't mean just because the way the dollars circulate, they'll talk about, oh, it needs to stay in our community, but there's so much that we don't own. But what is, if you see a younger Black person who's starting a business, right? And you see where they're struggling in particular places, instead of talking about them or saying, oh, they're not going to make it, use whatever resources you have to try to help them, right? And don't ask for anything in return. I think if we as a people have to reject capitalistic mindset, that value system, because it does us a disservice, because it was built on the backs of us being the lesser. You see what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So our economy was built, you know, and developed off of slave labor, right? And other things, not just slave labor, but majority slave labor, right? And with that, what comes with also that is this idea of like, use whatever resources you have to get what you need. But if we started saying, you know what, we as a people need to be in a better position. So I'm going to look for opportunities to take what I have and give it to my brother and sister without looking for anything in I think that will start the process. That's one thing. Why am I saying do this, right? is because there are a lot of
So,
people.
Karla, before you go on to the next thing, like for an example, like if I want to do something once I get off this podcast, I want to say, what can I do? What can I implement now? What would you suggest?
Right. So a simple example would be it just how often do people come to you for advice?
A lot.
All the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's say someone has advice, someone is asking you for something, and you realize this is something I normally do, but I charge people for. Actually, let me use myself. I'm a lawyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm a lawyer. People call me for legal advice all the time, right? And they try to sneak and get it for free. And I hate being manipulated, right? I do. I really do hate being
You should.
manipulated because. But the funny thing is, what they don't know is that I would give it to them for free.
Right.
But they assume that I wouldn't, so they try to manipulate me to give it to them, right? So one of the things I try to do, like if particularly, there's a young man I'm thinking about in my head. He has no idea what he's doing, but he's trying to start a business, right? He called me for a 30-minute consultation. I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you everything you need to do. Sit down, listen. I'm going to tell you where to go, how to write it down, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, but your consultation is only 30 minutes for free. I said, did I ask you for money? I didn't. I offered to give this to you because I see what your heart is. I have something that I normally charge people for, but I see the work that you're trying to do in the community. And I see the impact that you can have on the community. So I'm not going to try to charge you. And people are like, oh, just do pro bono. That's not what I mean. What I mean is when you actively look for opportunities to pour into another person. Right? Something that you have to give and you trust that it's going to do good things, right? I am the sum total of many people loving and pouring into me and not expecting anything in return. And what they've now gotten is a person who runs around and gives away all the time because people poured into me. Imagine if Black parents stopped saying to their kids, well, when you get to 18, you getting out or you start to pay rent, right? But imagine if they said, you know what, when you get 18, I'm going to begin to treat you like an adult because I want you to understand how to take care of yourself. Matter of fact, I'm going to start this when you're 14. So we're going to sit down and we're going to, I don't know how to do a budget. I'm going to find somebody who can teach you how to budget money better.
There you go.
Right? And then when that parent goes out to look and they meet that Black accountant who's trying to build his business and he sees this mother trying to do this for her young son, he says, you know what, I'm not going to charge you for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invest in your son and teach him how to do it right. If we particularly older people, I'm going to say like anybody who is a professional in any capacity, we have to start looking for opportunities to pour into young people what we have for free, because we need to get them out of the capitalistic mentality of take, get, mine, money, money, right? And the way that you do that is by you doing it differently. So that's one. That's just one. That's one way, is that I think that we have to start pouring into other people. The other thing is stop using negative language. As soon as someone says, why don't we try? Instead of saying you can't because, that we want to start saying, let's try to think of ways that it's possible. Right? We need to switch our language because we've been beat down with can't, ain't, not enough, cannot, we can't. We've been beat down. We need to change our language. So even if you don't change it for yourself personally, that's something you can work on. When someone is speaking to you, if the first thing out your mind is out your mouth was going to be negative, I want you to pause and stop and say, even though this sounds like, okay, I'll give you an example. I had a student who told me that he was going to be a professional wrestler. I said to him, so do you know how to wrestle? He said, no. I said, are you in a club? I just watch wrestling on TV all the time. I said, do you play any sport whatsoever? No. I said, you're not going to be no wrestler. Come on now. Like, get yourself together. Now, I could have done something totally different. I asked him all of those questions, and I could have said to him, okay, so you have this end goal here. Let's come up with a plan for how to make that.
Yeah.
What are things that you could start doing today, instead of saying you ain't done, you aren't this, but to say, okay, maybe you haven't, but let me help, or let me make a few phone calls. Let me see if I can find some people who may know how to teach you how to do this, if that's what you want to do. Now, maybe you don't become a wrestler, but whatever steps that you're taking, I have enough faith to know that God can use that for some other good. But we got to stop putting each other down. That's my number 2. Right. My third thing, and this is a little bit bigger. I really would like to get Black folks to really understand their power. They don't understand how powerful they are, how much and I'm not taking away from other cultures, but Black Americans do not realize how much influence they have. Right? We have, right? We don't understand the influence through, and people, they'll talk about music, but we have transformed the sound.
Yes.
Right?
Preach to me, Karla.
What there are people who are millionaires because they have capitalized on what Black people do so naturally, right? So I really would like to get Black people to spend one day and not spend money, so that they could see how powerful they are, how much influence they actually have, right? If on Juneteenth, and instead of everybody going out and partying and barbecuing, I say, look, I don't want y'all to spend $1. So if you want to barbecue together, then potluck. Whatever's already in your fridge, y'all go together in a park. This is a great example. This is something that happened to me in Japan, and I would love to see more of this. And this would be. I went to this beach in Japan. It's in Niigata, which is the northeast side of Japan. So I went to Niigata with a Japanese friend, and we're sitting on the beach, and behind us was a tent with a table, right? So we're laying on the beach. The guy comes over and asks, did we want, a bottle of water or something like that? And we're, sure, if you're offering, okay, no, no problem. So we wait a few minutes, and then they come back again and they say, hey, would you like to join us over at the table? And we said, sure. Now we had more things to beach to eat. But we walked over to the table and we're asking them, are you guys friends, family, et cetera, et cetera? And they were like, oh, no, we were all sitting on the beach and we thought, why don't we just enjoy the beach together? So since everybody had their individual food here, we decided to put it all on the table and we'll just share and enjoy the beach together. And a guy came down and he was like, hey, anybody want to ride on my jet ski? And I was like, I'd love to ride the jet ski. So I was like, how much for it? He's like, no, I just want you to enjoy the jet ski. Right? I'm done with it. And I like watching other people enjoy it. I take pleasure in it. I would like to see Black people.
The mindset.
The shift in the mindset. When you're at a park, instead of looking over, look at what she wearing, what she ain't got, but walk over and say, hey, sis, you want to join us? Right? So that we can shift into the mindset that we don't need to be afraid of each other. We don't have to all be best friends. We don't all have to live in a house together, right? We don't all have to, but let's deconstruct the hatred that we have amongst ourselves and this disbelief that we're not worthy. Those are simple, easy things. They're big things. We can start, do joint venture together. You have this business, I have this business, working together. Sure, you could do that. We could start a campaign to try to rewrite the Constitution. Sure, you can do that. You can lobby the politicians. Matter of fact, you could also say, you know what? We're going to stop voting for the same people over and over again, and we're going to start writing in quality people, right? You could do a campaign, but those are big. I'm saying start small with the change of mentality from I to we. And that we doesn't just mean your household. It doesn't mean just your blood, but the we is the community, right? We as Black people, and then we as Americans, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunate when we leave America as American, then Black. But when you're in America, I think that we need to do some healing. So we do have to do the internal we first,
right.
For conversation perspective. But I don't want us to get reparations until we heal.
You don't?
No, because
we're too selfish.
We are too individualistic for it to actually have the value that it could have. We've bought into greed as a people. So you can have a greedy individual, that's different. But when you start to teach people to be greedy, right, that's very different. That's like, we have a greedy culture. We would
so you think, Karla, our culture is more greedy than other cultures, though?
Than some, not all. But yes, I do think that we're more greedy than some other cultures.
I mean, I think as Americans, period, regardless of
that's what I meant. Sorry, I was talking about Americans then.
Okay.
Yeah. I do apologize. I did switch. I was saying as American, let me say it this way. I believe that Black people, because we are Americans and we contribute to the culture, we've embraced the culture of our oppressors. Okay. And so, actually, let me switch and say it this way. You know how people are like, we need more representation, right? Put more Black people in the White House and it'll be better, right? Put a woman as a CEO and it'll be better than a man, right? But if you've been, I'm glad you rolled your eyes, right? So here's the thing. If I have been schooled, if I went to elementary school, middle school, high school, college, many degrees, and I'm cultured in a particular value system, it doesn't matter my color of my skin. When I get into the position, I'm going to perpetuate the same thing because I needed to learn how to get inside of the system. Now I believe and I think that way, and I perpetuate that mentality. They didn't put people in the White House in these diversity positions. Not all of them had diverse experiences. They just had different color skin. Right?
What's the guy that was running for president? He was a perfect example of that. And I'll let you continue. The black guy.
Cory Booker?
No, not him. I like him. The one that was a surgeon. The black guy, Carl.
Yes. I know he's talking about. Perfect
example
the heart surgeon. Yes. Our Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas.
Yes.
Right? Clarence Thomas doesn't. Here's the thing. He's probably had Black experiences, but in his mind, he pulled himself out, right? And he thinks of us as a lesser people. So he wants to disassociate himself with us, right? And he makes decisions to prove his commitment to what it means to be a real American, ignoring all the factors that are contributing to why America looks the way that it does. So so the thing is, as a whole, rich, poor, middle class, Americans as a whole, no matter what race, that while there are individuals who are different, we are culturally capitalistic and individualistic as a culture, right? Which is why you'll have somebody on welfare who's entitled, and you're like, wait a minute, how you got an entitled attitude when you
on welfare
for free? Like that. This makes sense, right? You'll have the exact same mindset in a poor person as you do in a billionaire. They'll have the same, because it's a cultural mindset. It doesn't have to do with the money that's in our pocket. They've embraced this thing. But I think that sometimes you get a little bit of difference when you have like that lower middle class people are in there, people who kind of struggle because they see the nuances, right? And they've experienced the nuances, so they're trying to navigate it in this world. I'm saying the United States as a whole, we need a cultural shift, a value system shift. And I think one of the ways that we get there is by embracing our racial cultural diversity. The Koreans who are Korean American, them bringing their cultural experiences into the conversation is going to help us change our value system. Right. Black Americans being able to speak from their place and not always fighting for we need better, but saying, I'm going to tell you how my point of view is better than what we're doing right now. Right. Like what we can all agree, like let's take for it, I'm speaking in generalities, but let's say the COVID problem, right? So right now, I just posted where the CDC is saying, hey, take the mask off. We don't care. You know, you get COVID, pass it on. We don't care, right? And then the WHO is saying, listen, people are still dying from COVID every week. So be careful. And it's like, wait, how are
mixed messages?
Right. These two things don't go together. And the problem is they're trying to balance economic stability, all of this inflation and money, right, with public health. And in the US generally, historically, making money has always been a greater priority than human health, right? We always put that first. What if, since think about what we used to do, like your mother used to give me castor oil all the time, right? And cod liver oil, right, to make sure that I was okay. Native Americans using herbs, right? A lot of us weren't as sick with all the diseases that we have now, but we run a prescription. What if we embrace the Native American, the Native indigenous people's love of the earth and stop and started to cultivate the earth differently and said, I wonder if we can attack the diseases like COVID and people's health issues by helping people to eat differently, right? So instead of saying, oh, forget about the masks, right? Say, you know what? We do need to balance economic stability. Can you, people from all these other cultures, can y'all come and tell us how you're dealing with stuff so that we can think through this differently, right?
Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today on Manna from Heaven. I hope you are enjoying this series discussions on Black people working together with each other in community and the stereotypes that need to be dismissed and admonished. I hope the food feeds your soul. If you love this series, you can watch it again and again on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Divinely Designed Women of Wisdom, DDWW, Divinely Designed Women of Wisdom. Here you will find and enjoy all of my broadcasts and podcasts. While checking out my channel, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you next week. Don't forget, subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for joining me. See you again next week. Bye.